Should sex work be legal in the US? Why or why not? I've lived mainly in Australia and New Zealand, and prostitution is legal. Nothing bad happened when the law changed. It took sex workers off the street and into legal employment, which is safer and more regulated. Trafficking did not suddenly become more common. It's a good thing. Exactly. Plus, if I'm a legal prostitute, I will report any illegal, underground prostitution that is occurring because I have a financial incentive to do so. Plus, you're not worried about getting arrested or fined if you do speak up. And so are customers who see things that look illegal. Like, if they see someone who doesn't look 18, they can go straight to the cops without risk of getting arrested, and if she is 18, she doesn't need to worry because the cops would be like, "Oh yes, she's 18, we checked," instead of roar. Similarly, if an over 18 is being abused, etc., she can go to the cops, even. I hate when I try to talk to cops and they go rawr. Cops love to go rawr, honestly, it's like their thing. "Sir, you've been driving recklessly. I'm afraid you have to arrest you now." Every time. Just rawr, then I say bra, and the cycle continues. You can also report any harm that is done to yourself or other prostitutes without fear of facing legal issues yourself. And if a crime has been committed, it is easier to find willing witnesses. Yup, imagine some pimp beats up one of his girls in front of a few Johns. They are breaking the law and run away. When the cops arrive, there are no witnesses, or they catch the guys but they won't talk. If it's all legal and above board, they can call the cops and give statements when they arrive without fear they'll be arrested and potentially get jail time over it. Also, you can pay taxes, unionize, and get social securities. It's just better for everybody involved, and it's better for society. There are still shady things that happen, but most of those tend to decrease when people have an official business tied to it. And they can get employee benefits. Medical benefit, which will be very good to make sure they are in good health. And the ability to save money legally for when they retire. Indeed. Here in the Netherlands, they are able to rent a room in the red light district, Amsterdam for this example, with secure doors and stuff. They don't need a pimp for security and marketing, and can choose with who they sleep. Yes, there are people who get denied. All these places have good locks and stuff, and if somebody tries something funny, then security and police are there within a minute. A Christian group tried to ban prostitutes here last year because it wasn't safe and those women were forced. Lots of people believed them until the prostitutes themselves made a loud and clear statement that they were happy and safe, and banning it would cause more trouble. I mean, I hope the financial incentive isn't your only incentive. I doubt it is, but financial incentives accounts for the lowest common denominator of folks. It's best to have as many incentives as possible. Yes, exactly, it's just another reason why America is so backwards. We outlaw so many things that end up having shady, dangerous back-alley equivalents: the war on drugs, pimps with prostitution, back-alley abortions. It's really quite effed. Edit. Please don't take this comment as gospel. I'm just a third-year psych/economics student. Just because I wrote a paper does not mean I'm an expert. This comment is expressly just my opinion based on the facts that I've read. I guess this what I'm writing about in the middle of the night, but I actually did a research paper on this topic a little while back. Places that have legalized sex work have seen a sharp decline in reports of sexual assault among both street workers and regular women. In Rhode Island, they accidentally legalized prostitution for 6 years, and during that time reports of rape dropped 31%. In places like Australia, the Netherlands, and Nevada, where they have legal brothels, reports of sex crimes in the general population have also decreased between 30 to 40% in the first few years, and 25% in the years after that. There's also a similar decrease in rates of STD transmissions, due to the health screenings and enforced condom use that customers have to go through at brothels. I've read a few papers attempting to disprove these facts, but their methodology seems flawed because they tend to interview registered sex offenders, rather than the general population, so there's a question of if the men being interviewed have an unnatural proclivity for sexual violence compared to normal people. The biggest concern with legalizing sex work is human trafficking. A lot of experts argue that legal brothels will need women to work, and if they can't fill the best legitimately, then they'll do it however they can. This seems like a reasonable fear, but there hasn't been enough research into the topic. From what I've researched in the past for school, a lot of the arguments against legal prostitution seem flawed and nitpicky. I'd say the social benefits outweigh the cons, and prostitution should be legalized. I'm pretty sure you just did this guy's homework for him. Lol, probably, but it's no skin off my back. Bareback, huh? Sounds risky with a prostitute. Didn't you read, they do regular health checks? You're probably more likely to give them STDs than the other way around. Just a joke in case it didn't read that way. No, this is actually true, joking or not, you hit the nail on the head. Social warriors are some of the most fastidious groomers out there and have mega hygiene and sex health awareness, comparatively to the average bro who whines when you ask them to clean under their fingernails before you let them finger blast you, or rolls their eyes when you ask them to sanitize their hands for a full contact lap dance. Decriminalizing sex work makes it safer for clients and sex workers. Social warriors can spot trafficked people a mile away and know how to help the person better than most policymakers could ever figure out how to. Actually, it's not a joke, you really are more likely to give it to them. They are very careful since their livelihoods rely heavily on always testing negative. If they test positive, they could lose thousands of dollars a month from loss of work. I considered it to be a joke because if they followed all health precautions, going bareback wouldn't even be an option. Our homework. r/unexpected communism, Reddit link. r/expected communism, Reddit link. I really appreciate your thoughtful and detailed approach to this topic. I recently read an essay about the difficulties of defining consent and trafficking when money and sex are involved, written by sex worker and porn star Lorelei Lee, that I think you and others here would find interesting. I agree that the arguments against legalized prostitution are flawed, and I deeply despise the fact that my opinion, as a sex worker myself, will likely never be heard nor respected by anyone who actually has influence over public policy. This is a fun thought experiment to most people in the comments here, but the legislation and forced puritanical views actually have an impact on me and my friends' daily life, and I wish more people would listen. This feels akin to asking, should birth control be legal on /r/askmen. Web link. Reddit link. In Rhode Island, they accidentally legalized prostitution for 6 years. How exactly did this happen? They accidentally removed the language banning prostitution from their state laws during an edit, and didn't realize for 6 years until it came up in a court case. Since our laws are basically the source code for how our society operates, maybe we should have some effing unit tests in there. This was my favorite line of the whole answer, honestly. I really appreciate your answer here. In our current economic system, sex work will always exist, so we need to make sure it is safer. In a more meta sense, most people are driven to sex work because it pays bills and because they don't have opportunity elsewhere. If these people could have the opportunity to make a better living doing something else, most would. The goal as a global society should be that people never have to get into sex work to survive. You should read the article that /user teeny_ginger_18 shared with me in another comment. It deals with the issue of consent when survival is involved. Reddit link. Isn't it also true that if prostitution is legalized, then prostitutes have more rights and better legal protection if they're assaulted or trafficked? The biggest concern with legalizing sex work is human trafficking. A lot of experts argue that legal brothels will need women to work, and if they can't fill the best legitimately, then they'll do it however they can. This could be applied to literally any business. Amazon requires ex-workers in their warehouse, so if they can't get ex-workers, they'll kidnap people and force them to work there. Sounds absurd, doesn't it? Why would a legal business subject to legislation and hefty fines ever do that? On the other hand, why wouldn't the already illegal business do that to stay afloat? Illegal sex work attracts human trafficking. Legalized and legislated sex work would result in a much safer experience for both parties. And also, it's not always kidnapping, it's usually simply profiting of a bad situation, like people accepting to be sex workers in order to escape a country or whatever. The problem I see with that isn't that the case for like 95% of jobs in the world? Like Amazon workers aren't doing that to not effing starve. What are we thinking? It's their dream job and they actually have a choice? They'll make use of it if they think they can get away with it, even in places where prostitution is legal or decriminalized, like Spain. Absolutely, prostitution should be legalized, but sex trafficking is a real problem in Europe and elsewhere, and it would be prudent to be vigilant against its exacerbation should legalization occur. Web link. Sex slavery is a multi-billion-dollar business. They'll make use of it if they think they can get away with it, even in places where prostitution is legal or decriminalized, like Spain. Definitely. Legalizing it will not attract more sex slavery though. At worst it'll stay the same. In reality it'll happen less because the business will get smaller when legal competition cuts into their share of the market. Many people equate human trafficking to sex slavery, but the two are distinct, despite some overlap. There's plenty of voluntary crossing of borders to engage in sex work, or other kinds of work. Technically it is legal as long as you film it and just pay for the video, so then it is porn, which is fully legal. Family Guy taught me this. Remember kids, she's not a hooker if she's an actress. Mattress actress. That's a good one. I think I brought home an actor. This message has been brought to you by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I learned this from Boston Legal. If you include his humming, he's also doing a score. The amount of financial and legal hoops one must jump through to have a legit porn company create such a huge barrier that it simply makes it not worth it for any individual sex worker. What if you're paying to make porn for personal use and not meant to be distributed and sold? Then it's not porn, and just a sex tape. Now you're back to it being illegal. You also have to show that you're compliant with 18 U.S. Code Section 2257, 28 CFR 75. Not sure how many sex workers would be comfortable with their customers having their real name and address on file. You can't say make a porn, it doesn't sound right. It's either make porn or make a porno. Make a porn. You should get your legal advice elsewhere. In most of the US, that is not the case. You need permits for film production, and there's legal paperwork required to be tracked and/or filed with the state and local government. There's a reason porn produced by legitimate companies cluster in a small handful of jurisdictions. It's not legal in most of the US for a married couple to film their sex, upload it to Pornhub and make money? Which is only a small step beyond paying for the actress to have sex with you while you film it, then selling that film. What's the line? The employment of the actress where sex is involved? When talking about Pornhub, specifically, they require you to adhere to their TOS, including providing signed paperwork and proof of age to post videos. This is pretty much the lower end of legalities for adult film production. Pornhub just recently removed something like 70% of their content because they would not be able to produce the required documentation of unverified videos. So, think of Pornhub like the Uber or Postmates of porn. You are a gig worker under contract, and you still have to abide by their TOS and have copies of your ID and age verification on file. The line has to do with freedom of speech. The laws criminalizing prostitution are inoperative where they would violate the constitutional guarantees of freedom of speech. So part of it comes down to the intent of the participants. If the intent is to produce a work of art, and the courts try to avoid the question of artistic merit, shoving Sharpies up your ass can constitute art, it's constitutionally protected. If I want to hire a lady in the US, Nevada outside of Clark County accepted, just for my sexual pleasure and the camera running is just a charade, I could be convicted. As far as I know, you don't need a permit to film in a private residence or business to a certain degree, and you don't need a permit for some of these kind of low-budget productions, or else anyone with a DSLR would need a permit everywhere they go. I meant we're talking two people with just a camera and a ring light a lot of the times. That's not permit-worthy. I've been shooting commercials and TV for 10 years and I rarely have to secure a permit for anything I do, but I also live in a right-to-work state which is way more lax than other places on permits. I believe a non-involved third party would need to be present. From what I understand, which isn't a lot, the producer or director cannot also be the talent in a porn video. That may be true somewhere, but it's definitely not true everywhere. And that's how I made it in this dog-eat-dog world. Ah, yep. Gazes at sunset. Absolutely not. Have you seen the documentary Hot Girls Wanted? Some of those girls would fly across the country for a gig only to meet some dude in a hotel room that had a camera set up in the corner. Creepy. People doing things is not the same thing as things being legal. But there are volumes of porn available where it's just the porn star, actor filming himself with the actress, and the law doesn't seem to have a problem with this. That's simply not true. The reason porn is legal is because the payment is for the acting and not for the sex. It's weird, but it's also why escorting is legal. You're technically paying for her to escort you rather than sex. You're paying for the massage, not the happy ending? That's actually one of the loopholes used in Japanese. It's illegal to have paid sex with a person you're not acquainted with. Sex falling under the specific definition of penis-vagina intercourse, so any other act is perfectly legal. But if you're a client that just absolutely needs that vaginal intercourse, you go get a massage, get acquainted with the masseuse during the massage, and then it's perfectly legal to have sex with her since you now know the worker. The distinction used within most U.S. precedent for porn versus prostitution is the form of gratification. If one party is receiving money as gratification and the other is receiving sex as gratification, that's prostitution. If both parties are receiving money from a third party as gratification, that's probably not prostitution. If one party is receiving money from the other party, and the other party is receiving money from third parties, that's probably porn, so long as both parties engaged in the sexual scenario are primarily receiving money as their gratification. What about if you get sexual gratification and get paid for it but no one is around to watch? Like my girlfriend who goes to another school. The reason porn is legal is because of the constitutional guarantee of freedom of speech. In the 60s and 70s, the U.S. Supreme Court wrestled with the issue of whether or not porn was speech and whether or not to uphold state obscenity laws. Eventually, the court came down on the side of free speech. With private prostitution, there is no element of free speech. R.I.P. Larry Flynt. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to be the first to know about Red Rabbit Reader's new videos. If you like our videos, please like them on YouTube and share them with your friends. We welcome your comments below. Press to start another of our videos.